Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. How are you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing fine and you've been having a good day.
Yes,
All right.
sir. We're doing great.
All right. So Riley, as I'm seeing your name is Joy, right? You're the class captain.
Yes, sir.
It's fantastic. As Joy already introduced me, my name is Davidson. Davidson Ocheme to be specific, even though in Radio Land people would call me Dave. So I'm just Dave, right? And I would like for this little session that I have with you guys, I would like for it to be really short and simple, and but there's a lot for us to get to, right? Because as the topic that I suggested that we talk about, or we base this conversation off of, is the world being shaped, or the media world being shaped by young people, a guide to the media world for young people. Most of the people here listening right now to my voice in this meeting are young professionals or young people who are either in media already or you're looking to go into media. Am I wrong for saying this or am I right?
You're right, sir.
All right. So it could be radio. Are there how many other participants? If I just ask, how many other participants are here?
We are 16, sir.
Hello?
We are 16 here.
Okay. All right. So, and well, I'm sure most of you here maybe already have prior experience or are right now in media. And for everybody, the experience is quite different. It depends on how you started off. For me, I would like to just start off talking today, just to give you a bit of a view of how I got into this, just to set the tone and to get you to know me, right? So I didn't always start off as start off my career in media by first of all I didn't even study mass communication or anything related to that. Actually, if everything was to be the way it should, I should probably be in a lab right now, mixing together, putting together stuff, trying to figure out a chemical process or biochemical process, because by training I'm supposed to be a biochemist. But I've hello.
You can go on, sir. Sorry for the interruption, sir.
Thank you. So I'm supposed to be a biochemist. That's what I studied in school. But I've always wanted to be a media person. Growing up, it's either watching television or I was always listening to radio, and I always found it fascinating. It always seemed like a fun thing to me. And people always tell me how, oh, you have, because a lot of people, especially for this parts that we come from, you have a great voice, the way you speak, they just automatically just tell you, oh, why don't you consider doing radio or doing this or that? But with this, before their recommendation for me to try that out, I always wanted to in my head. So I finished school, and while I was doing other things to make money, I decided, you know what, let me see if I can actually get into doing media. Maybe just get some training and get my foot in the door and see how that goes. And I will tell you, it's been quite an experience. And from the very first day, I just started off working at the Beat FM. Of course, the Beat FM is the biggest radio station in Nigeria and West Africa. If you check online now, pick up your phone and check online, you find that. So I didn't just start off working for a brand as big as the Beat FM. I started off at a radio station back in the north where I was. I don't know how many of you know about Kaduna, but that's where I was at the time. So somebody told me there was an opening. There was an opportunity that I could, you know, start working or start off with a radio house back then. And I thought to myself, fine, fantastic. So I went there. Luckily enough for me, it was the time when they were actually looking to employ. But as you expect, they'll be looking to employ professionals, people who have been in the media already, on-air personalities, radio presenters, broadcaster, or whatever you like to call them. I didn't have any of this sort of training or experience, but I just felt like, all I could do is put myself out there and see how it goes. So, I went in, saw um, somebody who I was supposed to see, who was supposed to now introduce me to the general manager of the radio station at the time. I would never forget him because he gave me this shot, doing something that now I found out that I absolutely love. His name is Alpha Jack. Then he's someone who's been in the media for 1 ton years. He's been in television. He worked at the NTA, and then he's worked with various radio stations in Abuja before he started managing the station back then. And he just heard me, and we had a bit of a conversation and interviewed me. And he said, okay, so the thing is, they wouldn't be able to fully employ me, right? But what they could do is to give me an opportunity for me to intern at the time, to intern and see how that goes. And for me, I just wanted to get my feet through the door. It wasn't really about getting a job to get paid for. It's just something being an on-air personality or radio presenter is something I always felt like I would want to try out. And that was my first shot. And surprisingly, it just took a week. I just got in one early morning at the radio station, and it was the time before sports. And they asked me if I would like to, sit in and see how the sports show is done, and maybe participate in the sports show alongside the main host of the show. His name is Jerry Nastu. So I felt like, okay, fine, that'll be fantastic. I was excited, as you can imagine. I was really nervous because I did not know how that would go. But I got in the studio, the sport started. I've always been a sports lover. Growing up, I played football, I played basketball. So these two sports I really knew about, even though I do follow some American football because some of my cousins who play the sports professionally in the United States. I've never really followed other sports except for these three sports. But while I was there, but before I was there, someone had told me to probably research some of the things that we're going to be talking about now, getting us to a very important part of the conversation. I know from the various classes that you would have had in this wonderful program put together by the best in the business, Mr. Sami Wejiha. I'm sure you probably would have heard from some professionals already about how important research is. Now, here's the thing: a lot of people do not know what the media is really about, especially outside the sphere of media. People see television people, whether if you're on radio, they hear radio presenters, and it sounds like a fun gig. It is a fun gig, but they think it's just all about the fun. They think you just go there and make up things as you go. But it is really structured, and research is one of the pillars of media. And this is why it is back then, even when I was getting training at the radio station where I started off, our general manager, Mr. Alpha Jagden, would always say how research is absolutely sacrosanct. Now, for some of us young people, you know how it is when somebody who's slightly older, an older person says something all the time, it's almost like an invitation to, make fun and tease sometimes. And it was funny at the time because we always try to mimic the way he said it and say, oh, research is sacrosanct. But the point was not lost on us, because imagine you're going on radio, and let's say it was back then when, I don't know if any of you remember when the world, we're talking about Ebola in the world, especially in this part of the country, and there was an information online about some of the things that you could do to keep yourself immune from Ebola, which included, ridiculous enough, having a salt bath and some other ridiculous self-help methods that obviously, came out to be a hoax, and it might even have hurt somebody somewhere, who knows, but imagine if as a radio personality or a media person, whether it is you're in traditional media or in social, I say traditional media because now we have other spheres and other manifestation of what media is in terms of social media. And because social media, of course, is the new media right now. Everybody puts out information out there. We also have some traditional media like newspapers or other written outlets, and you have radio and you have television. Now, regardless of whether it is it's a traditional or it's new sort of media that we're seeing emerging now. Imagine if you had run with that story and you come on radio. For me now, for instance, I come on radio and I say, oh, we're hearing about the Ebola. So guys, here are the things that you can do to help yourself. You can use salt and stuff like that without even confirming if that was the actual way that you could help yourself not catch or treat Ebola. Imagine if I had said that as a radio personality on radio. There'll be millions of people who would have heard me. They would have had the impression that this person speaking is somebody who we should. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay. They would assume that this person speaking is somebody who has been vetted by the media world and is somebody who could take his opinion, and they'll go off having concentrated salt baths and stuff like that. Now, that is one of the example of why, even though being in the media, being an on-air personality, I find is a thankless job. I say it's a thankless job because nobody's readily, even though sometimes you do get people who come and say, "Oh, what you're doing is fantastic. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for entertaining us. You taught me this, or I learned this from you." I've had times that people have reached out to me on my social media to say, "Oh, I'm totally inspired by what you do. Thank you. I learned this from listening to your show. I learned that." So, but mostly it is thankless in the form that you would not find, rarely would you find the media people who are very well paid, to be honest. I just have to let you guys know. So it's somewhat like a thankless job, but the reason why we do it, is to, of course, to follow our passion, that's one, but also to educate people. Because even though at the radio station where I am now, we're very much entertainment heavy. We do a lot of music, and when we are interacting with the listener on air, it's mostly just sharing entertainment news. But here's the thing: at any point in time, as the media person, what you do is you educate people. It's either in the world of entertainment, or it's either in sports, of which is part of entertainment, or it's news, or something like that, or tech, all those kind of stuff. You get me? So the thing is, you'd have to understand that research is very important. You know, it is something that you'd have to live, breathe, and eat as a young person in media. As I said, the topic for this is a guide to a young person as regards to what the media looks like, or a guide to the media world for young people. You know, these days you see there are a lot of young people getting into radio presenting, being a broadcaster, a journalist, and all of that. And mostly it's because, just like, some of us before we got in, it seemed like a fun thing to do. So why not try it out? But it is way more than that, because you have a lot of responsibility, not just to yourself, to represent yourself as somebody who's a professional, but also a responsibility to your listener. You notice how I don't say listeners, because we always try to say a listener, because you're talking to one person at every point in time. It's your responsibility to that listener to educate them and not, lead them astray. In several trainings I've been on myself, you would hear examples where they'll tell you of times when just somebody coming on air and saying something, and it has led to a huge problem. It has led to, if we're going to be a bit drastic now, citing a drastic example, something like what happened in Rwanda. It was some of this stuff that seeped into the world of media, whether it was some of these things that was being said back then in Rwanda in the radio stations or in newspaper, but these things had gotten to the population, and they became bigoted. They had hate for another tribe, and it led to a genocide where thousands, if not millions, of people were killed on the streets of Rwanda, and it has made world news now. So that's the thing. You have this responsibility to the people to do your research and understand what it is anything you're talking about is. And I don't know if you've heard this before. I'm sure at some point in time during this training, you probably would have heard about the 5 Ws and H. Now, even for me as an OAP, an entertainment OAP as I am now, I still have to stick to some of those basics, all the basics, as a matter of fact, as to if I want to speak to a listener about a story, I have to think about this 5 W's and H. The 5 W's and H is the questions that you ask yourself. What? So what am I talking about? What's this story about? If it's related to a person, who is this person, or who are the people that are involved in this story I'm talking about? Where did this happen? What am I actually talking about? And I think there is also why. Why would people want to hear me talk about this? You get? And then of course the H. The H is the how. I think I'm missing one W. I'll remember before. And then of course I don't know if I've mentioned. Okay, so there's what, where, who. Hello? Somebody speaking.
When.
Hello?
Sorry for the interjection, sir. Please, you can go on.
Okay, so again, we're looking at the 5 W's and H. So it is who. You have to ask yourself, who are you talking about, or who are the people that you want this information to reach out to? In radio, it could be something called your target audience. Every radio station has a target audience. It could be that you are a radio station who you cater to various demographic of people, whether it's young people or whether people of various age groups, or maybe it's just you're speaking to older people. You have to understand your demographic. So who am I passing this information on to, and who it is that I'm talking about? That is the who part. And then there's the when. When did this story happen? When did this happen? A timeline is very important when you're talking about stories, because of course it gives the full picture. People understand what is exactly you're talking about. And of course the other W is why. Why is this story relevant? Why do I have to talk about this? Why would this help people learn what it is I want them to learn? And then there's the what, right? Now, what, of course, is another very important question. What is it? What is it that I'm actually talking about? And I feel like that is probably one of the first questions you must ask when you're thinking about writing or talking about a story, whether on TV or on television. What? And then the last W is the where. Where did that happen? Now, again, just to run down, there's the who, there's the when question, there's the why, there's the what, and there is the where. And then for the one H, the lonely H in the 5 W's and H, is a question how. Now, these are the five H's, the 5 W's and H that you'd have to know when you are a media person and as a young person. And I'm sure, again, as I said, that I'm sure somehow this would have been mentioned. But, in my training, getting into media, this were some of the things I had learned, and it had helped guide me even to this day. Because what that does is it helps you to have a very, very streamlined research. You're able to learn the things that you're supposed to learn and put out the necessary information out there, filter the things that are not supposed to get out, and basically do justice to whatever it is you're doing, whatever program or whatever element it is you're delivering at the time. So these are the basics. So research, again, is very important, and for you to do research, you need the 5 W's and H. And just think about it. Imagine you could, as a sport presenter now, for instance, because that's the story I was giving before I digressed, or before I segued into talking about research. I was talking about, how my first time ever was me going on air to talk about sports with the main presenter. So I had to do some research after getting the training. I had to ask myself these questions, check out some of the training stories in the world of sports, and it made it easier, really. But I was very nervous, as you can imagine, because it was going to be my first time. I mean, the mic was going to be turned on, and possibly thousands of people were going to be hearing me from different parts of the country. From there, whether it people listening online or it was people listening in the immediate environment from where we were broadcasting. So it was very nerve-wracking for me, but it was exciting at the same time. and I did not know the exact tune to use because I'm a soft, I'm a soft spoken person. I'm not really. If you meet me in real life, I'm not as maybe as energetic as I usually am on radio. But starting off, it was the soft spoken person that was on radio. And when we went on a break, someone just came and whispered in my ear, you're talking about sports. Again, as I said, you need to know who are the people you're speaking to. If you're speaking to people who love sports enthusiasts, these are people who like action. They like high octane, they like action. So you can't exactly be speaking like you're speaking in your bedroom, right? So someone came and whispered that in my ear. So you need to you need to be a bit more upbeat, a bit more exciting, just to give the people what they want. And we came back from break, and it's the personality that I had to portray. And I have to tell you, ever since then, it's the personality that stuck because I found, okay, so there's this person who is really energetic and sounds exciting, and that energy translates and is transferred to people who listen to you. And so for me, as a young person, even though we all have various motives of getting into media, maybe it is to make a living, or it is to become famous, or maybe you're just doing it as something to try out. Whatever it is your motive is, you have to understand that this job or doing this or going into media is very it's a very, very important job, and you have a responsibility to the people who are out there and to yourself to ensure that whatever information it is or whatever data it is you're gathering and forming an information for people to consume, it has to be authentic. It has to be something that is verified. It has to be something that is fact. And to be honest, it's not all the time that we report, whether on radio, on television, or or maybe on written media or social media. It's not all the time that you're going to have 100% facts. That's the truth about the matter, because again, in the media there's competition, just like any other industry in the world. Different brands, different companies, different media outlets are competing for audience, competing for attention, because of course, when you have great ratings, what that translates to for your radio station or for your television house is more money. The more money you are able to get in from the brand, the better for the better for yourself individually, and for your brand and for the company. And that's why there's a competition to get listeners to listen, to get your ratings up, so that people will be able to invest in your company, to say, oh, if I come here for an advert, or I come here for a campaign, people will be able to hear me because this is the number one station in this state or this place or whatever place that it is. So there's that bit of competition. So there's a bit of pressure to get breaking news, because whoever is able to deliver that breaking news first, whoever is able to deliver that information first. Let's say you have an information now for people like me who are into entertainment. You have an information that Wizkid just dropped a song, and actually he just dropped a song, and you're the first person to have gotten that information. Imagine you're always that first person to break that information, to say, oh, this person just dropped this song, or this celebrity is going to be here, or this celebrity did this and that. People would flock to your radio station and to your show just to listen to you break that information, and they would rely on the fact that if they come to you, they will get that breaking news, they will get that new, fresh information out, right? So there's a bit of that competition between various media houses to get the information out there quick and fast. And sometimes what that does is, even the best and the biggest media houses sometimes do not fact check. They don't fact check to see if this is true, or they don't do a rigorous job. They just put out the information out there, and sometimes they would have to go through the painful experience of backtracking, or saying, oh, I'm sorry guys, this was not actually true. So be that as it may, as much as possible, when you are going on air and you want to speak to people, so what you can say is, we are hearing, or according to reports, this is happening now. It cannot be confirmed, but we are hearing that this is supposed to happen, or this is happening. Now, what that does is even if something comes back to say, oh, that information was not fact, it would be out there that you had not spoken it like it was fact. So at every point in time, fact has to be spoken, the truth has to be spoken as a media person. And that's just it. So as a young person, these are some of the things that you need to understand. And understanding as well that you have an opportunity to do more. You have an opportunity to be more for yourself, to do more for yourself, to do more for your community or beliefs or whatever. Now, for me, I am somebody I'm passionate about, aside from, the fact that I do sports, I do entertainment, I'm very passionate about um, mental health. I'm very passionate about mental health. It's something I push on my social media. It's something that I've never shied away from talking about because there's valuable information out there from research and from global bodies like the UN and the UNICEF and bodies that they are laden with the responsibility of health and even mental health. NGOs and stuff. There's legit information out there that more than 50% of young people in today's world are having to deal with one mental health problem or the other. And it's, when we talk about mental health, a lot of people think it's about, somebody has lost their mind, or somebody has gone bonkers, or they need to be in a psych ward. No, that's not what mental health. It could be something as, you're dealing with anger issues. A lot of people are angry. You're angry all the time. It could be anxiety. Anxiety is actually a disorder known as anxiety disorder. There's attention deficit disorder, ADDH. A lot of people are dealing with that as well. There are a lot of mental health disorders. And I feel at any point in time, whatever show it is I'm doing, I want to pass across information about mental health because I know there's somebody out there who's listening who can be helped by that. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because you have the responsibility to make the society better as a young person who has the opportunity to be into media. Now, I have to give kudos at this point in time to Mr. Sammy Waging for putting together this master class, for putting together an idea like this, an initiative like this. Because I had him talking to someone once, and he said, "You hear radio presenters, these days, and a lot of them cannot pronounce names, especially in sports. They can't pronounce even some basic names, or they can't pronounce the names that normal people can't pronounce. Maybe people from Eastern Europe or some parts of Europe that have very complicated names. Even I have problems pronouncing those sort of names. And sometimes people just come on air because they have the opportunity at that point in time, and they say whatever they want to say. Now, he said the reason why he had to put this together is to have media done the right way, to have the media done the right way. So people, to have professionals who are coming in and doing things the right way, because it's not just about it's not just about being employed as a media person. Again, you have that responsibility to do it the right way, not just for yourself as the brand, but as a gate, sort of like a gatekeeper, as a protector of the sanctity of the profession of what media is. So whether it is you're a broadcaster, or you're an OAP, an on-air personality, or you're a presenter, or you are a journalist, you have to take it as a very, very important responsibility whenever it is that you have the opportunity to be that person. Thank you. Thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to speak. I don't know if there are any questions. Am I allowed to take questions, Joy?
Yes, sir. You're allowed. Thank you very much.
All right.
Please, if you have any questions, let's do it the normal way. You raise your hand and we'll take it from there. Please, if you have any question, raise your hand. Okay, John Peters, I can see your hand. Please, can you unmute your mic and let's hear your question? Thank you.
Thank you very much, the class captain, and thank you, sir, for this wonderful lecture this time. Please,
Thank you
I want
very
to
much.
ask. Thank you, sir. I want to ask. You have mentioned that if one is not sure of a story or a breaking, and he happens to break that news, that there is a way he needs to put it. That we are hearing of this, we are not sure. But, sir, what is the essence of breaking this news when you are not very sure of it? Because I have heard somebody said on radio that in journalism, when you are being trained as a journalist, that one of the principles is if you are not sure of a certain story, you should not bring it up. There is a language that he used professionally. I've forgotten it. But why not just wait until when the story is being confirmed before you actually come to break it, instead of coming to give a story that you are not very sure of with that very do I call it an addendum that we are not very sure of it? Why not just wait till we are sure of it, sir?
All right, thank you very well. That's a great question, John, if I might say. That's a fantastic question. Because you're right. If you're not sure, absolutely, you don't put that information out there. It's the truth. If you're not sure about something, you could literally be the last person to talk about that news just because you want for it to be verified first of all. You could literally be the last person to break that news because, of course, you have to always put out facts out there. As a matter of fact, there's been times in this country and different media houses where they would come out and say somebody's dead. Even for something like that, to come out and say someone is dead because they saw it somewhere. And because, as I said again, now I have to say to you, John, now in every profession, there are always guidelines and rules that you should follow. But the truth is, again, if you are dealing with competition, you have competition out there, you would sometimes have to be a bit inventive. You have to push the envelope a bit. You need to have to be smart about it, because imagine if, say, we're talking about let's say a sports related story. Maybe we're hearing now that a transfer was done. Maybe let me use one of the biggest names, or Lionel Messi, for instance, or Cristiano Ronaldo, and they are about to move to a new club, right? Even though, as we know, the transfer market is closed for England. Imagine that all the other radio stations or other media houses had broken that news, but and your audience had been on all those other platforms, and they are hearing that news from you last. Now, what happens is, next time when something, or let's say this has happened repeatedly, next time what happens is they would want to go somewhere else where they can get that breaking news, where they can get that information fresh, so they can also tell other people. Because you have to understand that sometimes when your listener listens to you, they also want to get information. They want to be equipped with information so that they can speak to other people about it, because everybody wants to be reliable. Everybody wants to be that person who is in the know. It's the person who is knowledgeable, right? So they would rather go somewhere else where they know that they will always get that fresh information before coming to you. Even though you are the person who is being professional, you're sticking to the standards of what the profession is. But here's the thing, right? Even though I say to you that sometimes some of this news come out, and because now we heavily rely on the internet, what you usually would do is you have to check out different sources. You have to check out international sources. You have to check out local sources if it's a local news. You cannot rely on just one source and you see the news. And a lot of media houses do that. They just say, maybe they feel like, oh, this is a very respectable source, and they just go and they check out the website and they see it, they just run with it. And sometimes those guys can actually make mistakes, and then that mistake rubs off on you. But here's what you can do is, when an information comes out, as to do a thorough research to properly ask the questions, the 5 W's and H. You also have to check out different sources. in real time to see who else is saying this, who else has this information out. Now, my GM at the time, again, Alpha Jack, then when we have trainings and meetings, he would say, except that news you're reporting happens right before you, or happens and you can see where it's happening, you can physically see where it's happening, or somebody, maybe it's a reporter for your radio station or your television, is live at the location where that happened, except that is happening and you can confirm by yourself, you should always ensure that you have enough sources saying the same thing. You always have to ensure that you have enough reliable sources. There are always reliable sources on the internet. People that you know, they are known for having facts out there. Now, except you have reporters, just like some of these radio or media houses that have the resources to have reporters everywhere in the world. So except you are in a media house that has that advantage, you have to rely on the internet most times. So you'd have to check out various sources before coming out to say, okay, so this is it. But even when you are not sure, and especially you have to also consider the seriousness or the veracity of whatever story that is. Now, especially when it comes to, as I said, reporting about someone dying, or especially when it's somebody who's influential, you're coming out to say, oh, this person, influential person died, or something happened, or they were in an accident. Now, this is something that is very tricky, because you don't want to come out saying this and it is not fact. Even just as a human being, you feel bad for proclaiming somebody dead even when you're not dead. Think about it, right? So what you want to do is you have to fact check from various sources to ensure that, okay, people are backing this up. But to also be safe is the reason why I said, or why I gave that bit of trick, because it was a trick that was giving while I had my training, to come out and say, oh, so according to reports, to some media houses even, it's not a bad thing if you say, okay, according to CNN, or according to the Beat FM, or according to, according to AIT or NTA, we're hearing that this or this happened. Now, some media houses don't do that because they don't want to give publicity to their other competition to say, okay, we're hearing from this or this or that this happened. But sometimes you could do that just so that, just to play it safe, to say, oh, there's a report breaking from this media source, from, let's say, CNN or BBC, that the Queen is dead. Just most recently, the Queen of England passed away. So, you could say, oh, so BBC are reporting that the Queen has just passed away. Now, when somebody comes and they, are checking if, oh, let's say that did not happen, they're checking to see, oh, why did these people report? They would see that the reporter or the presenter at that point in time had pointed out that they had gotten this story from this source. Now, what good that does is so that you don't plagiarize, you don't take all that people's information and pass off as yours, right? So except you are the person getting that directly, you're getting it from a correspondent, or you're getting it from a reporter who works for your station. Even when you find information online, you always have to say, according to reports, or according to the stories out there, this or this is happening. Now, or apparently we're hearing that this or this is happening. You always have to make it known. And sometimes, fair enough, it would be nice if you can actually state the source that you're getting it, just to give credit to this source, because a lot of people put out a lot of resources just to get information out there, right? So I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's the reason why you find that some of these things happen, that even though they are the standards, even though that's the right thing to do, to wait, even though you might be the last person to report that story, to wait to ensure that that is fact. Now, the reason why people don't do it, and you could say, oh, it's wrong or it's right, it depends on your view of the argument. The reason why people want to break that news as fast as possible is because in media, there's a lot of competition. And everybody wants to be that number one source for information. Everybody wants to be that go-to radio station or television or newspaper or magazine for various sort of information. And that's the reason why it's done like that. Am I still on? Can you hear me?
I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I don't know if I can ask another question, sir. Permission
Sure.
from the captain of the flag. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So yesterday we were also taught on how to deal be inquisitive. I'm sorry, sir. Pardon me, I will be inquisitive on this, and it might be personal, sir. Sir, your intonation, your voice, your phonetics, they are killing somebody like me. Pardon me, sir. How can we
Yes.
get to this level, sir? Thank you, sir.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, sir. I'm saying that your intonation, your voice, your phonetics, they are killing someone like me here, sir. How can we get to this level, sir? Thank you, sir.
Okay, so here's what I'll say to you. Now, I know it's would I say it's a stereotype, and sometimes I've had to deal with it. And for my personality, I'm sort of the sort of person who I don't like to be put in a box. To be honest, like, you know, if you put me in a box, I want to tear that box up. I want to break the box. I want to get out of it, whatever it is, you know. And there's a bit of a stereotype that, you know, OAPs, especially, you know, the modern OAPs, they speak a certain way. You know, you want to sound like you are from, as we young people would say it, you are from the abroad. You want to sound like you're just fresh off out of the United States of America, or you're from the UK or something like that. Now, while that is what people are doing, and to be honest, that's what people want to hear. But if I have to speak for myself, growing up, I grew up in various parts, right? And also I had various experiences from, was it friends, places that the place that I grew up, the friends that I had exposure to, some of my family members, you know, even though the one time that I traveled out of the country, it wasn't, trust me, it's not from when I started sounding like this, because I mean, I was way young to have remembered the experience. But the thing is, just the influence around me, the people around me, it just sort of stopped. You know, I had family members who leave the UK and places like that, and it just sort of stopped me. And so this is why I mostly sound like this. So it's not something I do on purpose, even though, of course, there are some words that you have to pronounce rightly. And I told you that one of the things that Mr. Sami says, I overheard him saying in the conversation, because as you rightly said, you always have to be inquisitive as a media person. Now, there was, and you just gave me another brilliant idea, or something that I should have spoken about. Now, we know that what you're putting out there is called content. That is the new buzzword, content. Whether it's on social media, you're putting out a video, or you're coming on radio to talk, or you're on television, it's called content, what you're putting out there for the world to enjoy, right? Now, your content has to be fresh. Your content has to be entertaining, but it depends on, or it has to be informative or whatever. Now, but your content also has to be original, right? So even though the listener these days would sort of gravitate towards OAPs or presenters who are putting out content and sounding like this, who, you know, they have a certain intonation or have accents and stuff like that, I'll tell you something, originality is what you want to stick to. Now, a lot of times, there are media houses that, granted, they might want to employ somebody who sounds this way because, of course, they want to appeal to people who are sort of inclined or attracted to this sort of what they hear when they hear people speak in a foreign way or something like that. But what I'll tell you for sure is, if you want to work on it, it's fine. It's all good. If you want to sound like this, it's fine, because, of course, sometimes it's all about packaging. It's all about, you know, making yourself seem a certain way. For me now, or in modern times, radio personalities are not presenters. We don't call ourselves presenters anymore, because we've gone past that age of being radio presenters. We're now on-air personalities, because you have a personality that you portray out there, whether on social media for people to see and relate to you in that sort of way, or a personality you portray on radio. You know, so if you want it to be part of your personality, that is fine. But I'll tell you something, you don't have to change your originality just so that you you sound like everybody else. Now, but the important thing that you have to work on is to ensure that, for instance, you pronounce people's names properly. It takes a lot of work. Sometimes you could go online, Google how is this name pronounced or how is this word pronounced. For me, even as a listener, sometimes because I listen to radio as research as well, just to get some research and see what the information is out there or how other radio stations are doing their elements or doing their programs, just like a bit of research, right? And I can assure you that other people are doing that as well. Other presenters are listening to your station and listening to how you're doing, because of course the competition is there and everybody wants to outdo each other. So in as much as you're doing that, or I'm doing that, and I hear somebody they pronounce a word wrongly, it's as a professional, as a media professional, you have to pronounce your words. You have to pronounce your words pretty well. You have to pronounce those words clearly. You have to use the right words. You have to pronounce them rightly, because that's what stands you out from the normal people, normal person out there on the street. Being able to pronounce people's name properly, pronounce certain words properly. So if I should recommend something to you, John, your name is John, right? If I should recommend something, if you want to work on it, that's fine. But here's what I'll tell you. I would rather that you put in your energy to pronouncing these words right. Now, sometimes it's hard because we have our mother tongue. For Yoruba people, sometimes it's really difficult to pronounce some words. For Igbo people as well, or for Hausa people that I'm mentioned in the main tribes now, or even some minor tribes, or if you're from, say you're from the South, even here in Port Harcourt, sometimes because of the sort of pidgin, you might have problems pronouncing some words. Now, while that is some words, it cannot be helped, but you have to train yourself in a sort of way that even when you make these mistakes, they are minimal. You don't want to go and be the radio presenter or the media or the television person who pronounces every word wrongly. You want to try to minimize the amount of mistakes you make when it comes to pronunciations, right? For instance, we say mistake. Oh, it was a mistake. I did this and it was a mistake. When I was, there was one time we're getting training on how to pronounce certain words and all of that, and it was said to us that it is not a mistake, it is a mistake. But how many times have you heard people make that mistake? Or you see, just now I was about to make that same error. So it's a mistake. It's like putting the wrong foot forward. You're putting your wrong foot forward. It's a mistake on something. It's not a mistake. It's a mistake. So you have to learn how to pronounce some of those words. For instance, you want to say education. Some people say it's education. It's education. You're getting an education. So you have to learn how to pronounce some of these words rightly and not necessarily have some sort of foreign phonetics. Because when you keep that originality, I assure you that the advantage you have is you can relate to more people. You find that in certain places like Port Harcourt, other places, pidgin stations thrive a lot because people are able to relate more to people who speak pidgin. Sometimes on radio, especially if I'm talking really fast, if I'm going off and I'm talking really fast, oh, okay, hi, I'm Dave. This is a nighttime show on the beat 99.9. We're going to talk about a lot of exciting news today, whether it's entertainment or we're talking about Wizkid. Wizkid dropped an album or a song. I'm speaking really fast. A lot of people can't hear what I'm saying. Sometimes it can put them off, right? Other people, oh, I like the way this guy speaks, and they want to stick around and listen to you, and they can understand what you're saying. But for a lot of people who cannot understand, they rather go to somewhere where they can listen to someone talking the sort of way that they can understand. But even though I speak in this way, sometimes I try to slow it down a bit, because what you don't want to do is to not be relatable to your listener, to go over the head of your listener. You always want to ensure that your listener understands the information and the information that you're putting out there, and they understand you. So if I would recommend, again, do not lose your originality of how you sound. If if you want to sound different, that's fine. That's fine. That's based on your preference. That's based on how you want to package yourself and your personality, right? But also, just ensure that you are always getting information. Because I assure you, if you get interviewed today to work at a radio station or a television station or wherever media house or outlet it is, they would ask you questions and maybe listen to how you talk as well. But if you pronounce your words rightly and you are brilliant, you are smart, you are always learning new things, you are always at the cutting edge of information, trust me, you have a lot of opportunities available to you, and people would listen to you because they know that this person is reliable, this person is professional, this person would do his or her research, you know, and not lead me astray. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to be. You want to be that person who is reliable, that person who puts out great content. And that's what it is. So that's what I'll say to you. I hadn't necessarily worked on this except for pronouncing some words correctly. How I'm speaking now, or my phonetics, or how I would like to call it, or whatnot, is how basically I grew up, right? But I would like for you to keep your originality, and if you want to work on it, by all means, do it. Something I feel like you can't do. You can listen. You can have a mentor. We should all have a mentor in media. You know, I recently met Mr. Sammy, and I have to say, you know, coming in, I don't know if he's here, but let me just tell you guys this. So coming into the radio station, you know, the way he carries himself, Mr. Sammy is a very confident person. And I had caught the show, the spot extra he does on our station, the Beat FM, quite late a couple of times, and I would hear he would finish off saying, "Oh, I'm the best in the business. This is the best in the business, Sammy Wejinha, and I'm signing out," and stuff like that. And I say, "Oh, is this confidence? Is this confidence now, or is it pride, really?" You know. But having listened to him do his show fully, and having been in the studio with him one on one when he gave me the opportunity, I would have to say he knows what he's talking about. And Sammy could do a program in Pidgin, or he could do it in English, and he will still pronounce the name of athletes, even the most difficult ones, correctly. And he always has the information at hand. So people rely on Oga Sammy as somebody that they can go get sports information directly because they know that he knows his onions, he knows what he's talking about. So that's the sort of person that you should strive to be, someone who knows what they're talking about.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Fair fortunate children, please let's hear your question. Very fortunate children, I'm seeing your hand. Please, can you unmute your mic and ask your question?
Okay, thank you very much. So most of the lecturers we've had so far has emphasized on saying the truth at all times. You also made mention of that today. So I want to ask, we know someone, an investigative journalist, Dr. Kemi, a lawyer. She's an investigative journalist, and currently she's not allowed to practice in Nigeria because of how she reports. Most of the times her reports are always true. Like they are always bitter truths, which most Nigerians aren't comfortable with. And most persons always send her threat messages and all that. At that moment when she's reporting, you might not see it as the truth until later on you find out that what she reported was actually correct. So with this, now it has affected her career. She's not permitted to practice here in Nigeria. So now, would you also say that we should keep saying the truth, no matter how bad it is, or we should just mellow down? I don't understand. Please, can you throw more light on that?
That's a brilliant question, and I have to say we have a very brilliant crowd in here. You know, you guys are asking really, really, really important questions. I have to just mention that. So kudos to you, big ups. Here's the thing, right? You have to always consider the uniqueness of your environment. You always have to consider how unique it is. Now, if we were having this conversation somewhere, say like in the United States of America, what I would say to you is absolutely always speak the truth. Always. As long as it's fact. As long as you've done your fact checks, you are there. You are passing first-hand information, and it is verifiable that that's a fact. Always say the truth. But we do know, unfortunately, without calling out anybody or any organization or whatever, we do know that even though we're in a democracy and we'd like to think about the media as how would I say this now? We like to think about the media as unstifled. We like to think about the media as a free body that you can just really do your job without any having to worry about something. Now I'll tell you a story, right? I'm from the north. Well, I used to stay in the north most of my life, and in Kaduna, as I told you guys from the beginning. And you know all the news you hear in the media about banditry, about kidnappings, about terrorism and stuff like that. While that is not as extreme as is reported, even though by the day it's getting worse, but it's not as extreme as reported as you can imagine. Sometimes some things can be blown out of proportion and it's not really put in context. And that's why, again, as a media person, you have the responsibility to always put out very, very accurate information, so people are not panicking, people are not having a wrong information about somewhere. So here's the thing. In our radio station, or the radio station where I used to work at, right? Um, our general manager would tell us, look, there are some news that we will not report because number one, we have to think about our safety. Number two, we have to also think about the radio station, and we don't want to get undue or unusual attention from the people who are supposed to be the gatekeepers from the NBC, because there's sometimes you will get memos from the broadcasting, of course, the corporation, the NBC, saying how don't speak about stuff like this. Now they will give you reasons and don't speak about stuff like this. And while the reasons are right, as a media person, as someone who you would like to think about yourself as a purist, you think to yourself, am I truly doing my job if I cannot report everything in its entirety, if I'm picking and choosing the information to put out there? Meanwhile, there are people who might need this information so they can be able to stay safe. But our general manager told us at the time, in this media house, there are things that we might not be able to report because it might not be safe for you as an individual. It might not be safe for the radio station as a brand. Now, as sad as it is, it's the reality that we live in. Now, you mentioned Kemi, and that's the reality. But here's the thing. If you always stick by the truth, you always stick by professionalism, right? Posterity will speak on your behalf. Now, you are someone who I'm sure you don't know her in person. I'm sure you've never met her before. You maybe have ingested or you have consumed some of her reports and everything like that, and you are verifying that this person is reliable for putting out facts. Now think about it. That is posterity speaking for her. Now, unfortunately, she cannot now practice a profession that I'm sure she's passionate about, a profession that she enjoys doing. Now, she cannot practice, but everybody will speak of Kemi as somebody who was upstanding. But sometimes it could be as drastic as, in some countries, I'm not even saying here in Nigeria, maybe here in Nigeria, maybe not in Nigeria, without really saying anything. You can see I'm even trying to play safe still. You would find that there are many people who have unfortunately lost their lives. Because as you said, she was even getting death threats, right? They've lost their lives. Now, it comes down to you as an individual. Is the risk worth it for you? And aside from an individual, you also have to think about the bigger picture of, maybe I will not necessarily call it the bigger picture. You also have to think about your brand. You have to think about your employer, the people that employ you. Will they support you? Now, there are still stations, television stations, radio stations, who are objective in every definition of what the word objectivism is. They're objective. And again, that's another important word that you have to know as a young person who is into media. You have to be objective. Every news you put out there, every information you people have out there has to be objective. You have to give ear and room to every party involved, which is where the one of the W is coming, the who. If now we're in political times, if I'm giving the room to party A, I should be able to give the room to party B to speak their minds. or at least throw open the floor for these parties to come and speak their truth, right? I cannot just give one party, even though I'm not coming out to say, oh, I'm supporting this party. But if I give one party the opportunity all the time to come and speak and speak to people about their truth, I'll be perceived as being biased. And one thing you don't want to be associated with as a media person or a media house is bias. You hear the word media bias all the time. And unfortunately, in modern media, there is some bias, because not everybody is being treated fairly. Not every voice is being treated fairly and given the fair advantage of speaking their mind. So it's the world that we are in now. But again, what I'll say to you is, you have to consider this news I'm about to report, or this information I'm about to give out. Will it cause harm? Will it be good? Because you have to also think about the effect of the information you're putting out there. Do I want this person to feel happy? Do I want what am I sharing this information so that the people stay safe, right? Why am I sharing this information? You have to think about that angle as well. So when you consider all these various angles, and that's why I say to you, even though as an outsider, before I go into radio, it seemed like fun. You just go in the studio, you play music, you come, you sound a certain way, you give information. It just seems as simple as that, but it's way more than that. Every single day, it gets tiring sometimes, I have to tell you. So you have to ready your mind. Every single day you do research. Every single day you are thinking about how to not only do this research, but how to deliver the information, because delivery is very important as well when you talk about the media. Delivery, how to package this information so you are unique, so you are doing, so that you are passing across it in a unique way as well. So these are the other things. And I like that we're having this conversation, because as we go on, I'm remembering other trainings I had gotten, and I'm, giving you lot that information as well. So again, you have to consider this information I'm putting out there. Is it going to cause harm? And is it harm that I can risk? Is it harm to myself, or harm to the general populace, or harm to my radio station or the company that employs me? Now, if it's something that is really explosive, something that you feel like might be really interruptive, you might want to have a conversation with your administrators or your heads to say, oh, so I have this information and I'm thinking about sharing it. What do you think I should do? So that, okay, what you're doing, you have backing, at any point in time. So this is the best I feel like I can answer this question, because again, unfortunately, we would like to think that in our country, the media has a freedom. But the question I want to ask goes out to you. Do we really have the freedom to do whatever and speak about whatever I would like to speak about? That's the truth. That's the question you need to answer.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have a question on the chat box from Chuku Divine Akelachi.
Right.
What's the difference between a reporter and a correspondent?
Okay, so a correspondent and a reporter, really. I've never really thought about this, so that I don't do you a disservice by giving you information that is wrong. I don't want to be associated with stuff like that. But if I should just say, I might need to do a bit of research on that myself. But I feel like it's basically the same thing, a reporter and a correspondent, because at the end of the day, what you do as a reporter, what you do as a correspondent, is that you go out there in the field and you get the information firsthand. You are on ground, you're the boots on ground. You are the person who's going out there, sourcing the information, talking to people, talking to sources. You are the person who your station or your brand or your company or your television station relies on to get that firsthand exclusive information. So from my understanding and from interacting with correspondents and from interacting with reporters, I would have to say it's one and the same thing, but I'm saying that cautiously because I would like to do a bit more research to know if it's one and the same. But from this point where I stand at this point and the information available to me, I would say that it is one and the same thing, being a correspondent and a reporter.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all the questions we have for now.
All right, thank you. Just to say thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to Sami Wejinha. Thank you to every one of you who have listened to me talk at length. I hope I did not really bore anybody. I hope
Yes.
it was enjoyable, and you were able to learn something most important. And just a bit of a pattern shot for you. Be excited about this journey you're on. If you have made the decision that you want to be a radio presenter or you want to be a TV person, be excited about it, because it's, as I said, it might be a thankless job. It doesn't pay as well enough as it should pay, especially in this part of the world. But it is, I don't know if I should use the word noble. It's a noble profession in the sense that you are the person putting out information out there. As they say, information is power. So what you are doing basically is you are empowering people, you are enabling people. And what that makes you is somebody of importance, somebody of value. So enjoy it. But also always remember that there is a process. Always remember that there is a responsibility that is on you, and carry that responsibility, the utmost, sense of responsibility, if I might use the word again. So that's all. So if you want to interact with me directly, you can go follow me on my social media. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok, even though my TikTok is mostly play, as you can imagine. But yes, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. You can follow me at Dave_the_beat_FM. Dave_. I was looking for the function here because I don't use Zoom a lot. So I was looking for the function as to how I can have my video up so you guys see who exactly you're talking to. But I'm not able to find it at this point in time, and I did not want to disrupt the lecture too much. So if you want to see me physically, or you want to have a direct correspondent with me, what you can do is you can just go on my social media. So it's Dave_the_beat_FM. Dave_the_beat_FM. It's really that simple. Just go on there. You can follow. I'll follow you back. Send me a DM. We can get talking. If you have any other questions to ask, or any other way you might think might be of help to you professionally, I'm definitely down for that. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and it's great being here.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time, and I hope we all learned something from the lecture. Please see you in the group, and let's all submit our assignments. Thank you, and have a nice day.
Miss Joy.
Yes.
You still there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Your mic really distorted the class, so.
Really?
Yes.
So sorry about that. But how? I'm in a very quiet environment. I don't know.
I guess it's interfering, or maybe there's a sound, but it interferes. So please, when next, you just try as much as. I know you're the class captain, but you try to mute your mic. When you want to talk, you open. Thank you. Don't be angry.
Thank you.